Welcome into the Bite Me podcast. And the first question I saw on the comments here as we go live is, when are those pre-show tickets going to go on sale for our pre-show conversations? You know what? I'm going to put my guys on the spot. I know Caleb's going to talk about what he was talking about here when we get to the topic of if you go this far to keep illegal fish, should penalties be more severe? He's got a side note on that. But you know what? This is the Bite Me podcast. Our lives are open books, and I'm John Lopez. That's Captain Scott Knoll. That's Captain Caleb McCumber. That is Captain Dean Thomas with a kind of halfway embarrassed grin on his face because he knows I'm going to put him on the spot. So obviously we want you to subscribe to the podcast, Podbean, Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Obviously we want you to join the Facebook group page, which is over 10,500 people now. And the reason that it has gotten to the point where it is because we are an open book. Dean?
We would lose subscribers if they listened to today's public service announcement.
All right, so hold on. I'm gonna let you try this first to try to put it in simple terms that they don't have to be PG. We can be R-rated. We just can't be X-rated.
If Dean was a superhero, he'd be Hamster Man.
No, it would have been superhero because it doesn't shrink; it swells to like can't wear underwear kind of things.
If you're wondering,
but look,
if you're wondering what we're talking about, hold on real quick.
First of all, I'm healing up. Okay, I'm healing up 2 weeks after hernia surgery, and the trauma that goes into that area of your body is traumatic. It's the best way to put it. And first of all, huge shout out to Dr. Trip Buckley and the team at the Dell Seton Medical Center, University of Texas, which I don't know if Aggies have any doctors. Do Aggies create doctors?
Yeah, they got a medical school now.
Oh, I didn't know Aggies actually had doctors. I know that UT is quite popular. But at the University of Texas in Austin, great team, amazing, took care of my surgery and all that. But the pamphlet that comes with the what to look out for after surgery could be way more thorough. It could be. They left out.
You didn't read the fine print.
Maybe it was in there.
The fine print says your boys are going to swell to the size of softballs.
I read the first couple sentences and where it was going to be good, and I was like, okay, sign me up.
Dean said he has to get away from the door for his dog to use the doggy door.
but all that being said,
they were that big, and it was painful too, huh?
Yeah. I mean, and still, I got to be careful, like about bumping into things.
Yeah, you might trip over
them. Weren't you fishing the next day though, dude?
Hey, I had surgery on Wednesday. I was off 2 days, and I was fishing on Saturday.
I'm pretty sure all that being said, in the pamphlet,
I was fishing with my surgeon on the third day.
Who recommended you not fish? You see the irony here, Dean?
Yes, it is. It is. It was a strange irony, but it was so cool because but look, it saved me like a $30 copay because I didn't have to go to
he did an exam right out on the water.
I didn't have to go to the follow-up the appointment. But I did have, a good long day to ask a lot of questions afterwards about, what the hell did y'all do in there?
Why are they so big?
That little knob on your steering wheel, did it only work from like 7 to 4?
7 o'clock to 4 o'clock.
Yeah. I was good. I went in one direction real well.
But they're back to normal now?
Oh, I'm back. I'm back in the game, bruh.
The doctor said, "I need you
to stay in. Put me in, coach."
The doctor said, "I need you to stay off your feet at least 5 days." By the way, you open day after tomorrow?
He said, let's go do a trial run, see how you're feeling.
You open day after tomorrow?
But and then I mean, and then I had a 7-day run, man. I fished for 7 days in a row from there on. So hey, trial by error, man. You're either gonna
in your case, it was error by trial.
Error by trial. The good news, Scott, is he didn't need an anchor. He just leaned over the side of the boat.
Ooh. It was a little frightening there for a couple of days. And it's like I was saying, man, luckily I got my surgeon on speed dial because, I didn't want to take a picture and send it to him because it really felt weird. I was like, even if he's my doctor, I was like, it was uncomfortable.
I'm picturing South Park when Stan's dad's hauling his nuts around in a wheelbarrow.
Dean was fumbling all over his phone looking for the panorama, way to take a picture.
Dean,
it's not wide enough.
Dean, truth or dare? Truth or dare, Dean? Did you ever say, "Hey, Carrie, look at this"?
I did. It was too traumatic to do that. But and it was funny. So when the one thing I did tell the doctor that I kind of got a laugh out of him was when I was telling him, about my condition. I was like, man, dude, I don't know if this is right. I says, I've beat that thing up a couple times along the way. I said, but I ain't never seen this kind of damage. Even the surgeon thought that was a little funny.
There's multiple things that I wouldn't like barter and trade for, and surgery that affects my nuts is one of them. I'd go ahead and pay that.
You say that now, but the pain and the other issues that come with triple hernias, or you get to the point where it's like,
I wouldn't get it done. I'm just saying that I would have went ahead and paid full retail.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you wouldn't. I know you better than that. You ain't paid full retail for anything.
I was an hour late to the stand Sunday morning on time change too.
I know. We knew that was going to happen. We talked about it last week.
We walked out and we looked around. I'm like, man, getting daylight kind of early.
And you know what else they don't do? They don't trade fishing trips for surgery either. I would have to be fishing until I'm 90 years old.
Scott sent me Scott hooked me up with a customer that offered to trade me a vasectomy for a trip. And
you should have done that.
He was out of Austin, and I told him, I'm like, man, I'd appreciate it, but I really don't feel like I want to drive 2.5 hours on that. I'd rather just pay somebody around here and be 15 minutes from the house. Doesn't seem great.
Man, what trading fishing trips for any type of surgery just doesn't seem great. I'm on that 50% off bargain deal on the scalpel to my cods.
Hey Doc, I seen your knots fail out on the boat.
That's right. All of a sudden, I'm like, dang, it's not sticking. Why am I bleeding? Could have done a loop knot.
No.
But anywho, go ahead.
Yeah. I was going to say, we digress.
We do digress. That was about 8.5 minutes of digressing there, but well worth it. But we're happy to see you back on your feet and not on your boys.
Do you think it's our fishing knowledge or crap like this that gives us the national rankings?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. It's both. One thing is that people want to hear. I've told you guys this off the air. They want to hear themselves talking with friends, sitting around the bar or whatever, and that's usually how bar talks start. And
as I have told this story, apparently the hernia is not the most uncommon thing in the world. There's a lot of people out there that have done this. So, and if anybody has it in the future, you can DM me for other tips on ice bag preparation. Don't use ice packs with sharp edges.
Ouch.
It seems common sense. I don't know.
Don't eat the peas.
Don't eat the peas. No, definitely do not eat the peas. They're going in the trash can. They're definitely going in the trash can. No, but the thing is, what works with you three guys is, and I've always told people young in radio this, you got to be honest. Number one, be transparent. So you got to be honest, and you got to be yourself. And being yourself is hard. And you got to just sort of like put your ego aside and just be yourselves. Like Caleb is Caleb.
I got to disagree with you. Being myself is easy. It's the blowback for being myself that's hard.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. No, but at least it's honesty. Dean is Dean, you are you, and Scott is Scott, and that's what makes it work. And,
I don't know. I didn't know there was an alternative.
Exactly. That's why it's working. All right, so let's be ourselves and talk about fishing a little bit. I'm sure we will get back to this at some point, maybe at the end of the
I don't ever want to talk about it again. We closed the chapter.
That is a new drift sock, by the way. We had several people texting about that.
Yeah,
you don't need that shootout. You just need to hang them over the side. Yeah, you'll be going like half a mile an hour.
Shit, if the water was cold, it would have been an option.
And it's deep too. All right, so here we go. All right, so let what we've had here, Scott. I'm gonna start with you on this one. But y'all guys jump in however you want. So we've not 2 weeks ago we were talking, man, is there ever going to be any difference in the weather? Well, we've got a lot of dirty water everywhere. We got some very erratic winds everywhere. Unseasonably high temperatures everywhere, although there's rumors about a cold front. And so Scott, the question comes up. All right, all this mess is in front of us, and I want to go fishing. How do you approach it? Like, and maybe you three guys have different approaches when it's just you've been on the water, you've scouted, but now all hell broke loose.
Sometimes you just got to start over. You start with where you left off. With what you knew was going on prior to the big disruption, and try to guess where the fish would have gone from there if it's a large disruption. This little front here, I mean, it's blowing northeast here right now, but I wouldn't call this a major disruption. Water temperature, I just looked at it, dropped from 79.5 to 77.5. So, it's only a 2-degree water drop. It's not that drastic. But when you get the dirty water and you get the high winds overnight, man, sometimes you just got to roll the dice, go back to where you started, where you left off, where the fish were the day before, and give it a shot, but have an alternative plan for where you think they may have gone. Did they go deeper? Is there clear water holding somewhere else? If you're wanting to go sight casting, you get a big change in the wind, it can push dirty water around by the wind, and start looking for thick grass flats like what Dean has. He's not going to get dirty water. I mean, it has to be really radical there. But if you're in Galveston, switch from southeast to southwest can muddy the water in a matter of hours. The fish don't really care that much. It's more about whether or not we can see them if we're sight casting to them. And you're going to want to go with a louder bait, something that's got some vibration to it in that dirtier water and the higher winds. I go popping cork if you got to. I mean, if you have to. But
I hear you.
Most of the time, like the upper coast, when it would get dirty like that, I'd
switch it twice for my benefit.
Yeah, I'd switch over to a spinner bait a lot of times when I was fishing the upper coast when I'd get that dirty water, and I had to go catch fish in it. That worked quite well pretty often. Down here, I can usually move around enough based on what the winds are and and what the tides are doing. Around here, you can move around enough to find some clean water. But from here up, say Matagorda on up, and you can get some really damn dirty water that way, and you just got to work with it.
Caleb, we know dirty water at East Matagorda Bay. I mean, it's you get some winds and it's all of a sudden you're looking for a little 10 by 10 foot area of clean water. That's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about you because you can find it, but the winds as well are just kind of screwing up things, and it sort of messes with your head a little bit. It does mine. Like are there any fish here? And then he's trying to look maybe below the dirty water and how and those types of things, you know?
Yeah, no, Scott pretty well hit all of it on the head. And Matagorda, he's right, East Bay will mess up in a matter of hours.
Yeah.
You can look at the wind direction and find some protected coves. You know, some of that stuff in the South Shoreline will stay protected from a lot of different winds. However, there's about 5 of them, and if you're not one of the 5 boats that got in there, then you're going to find yourself in a situation. Tuck up against barrier islands. Sometimes that water will stay a little bit cleaner, but the answer for me over here is whenever East Bay's messed up, West Bay usually stays cleaner, or I'm going to the river or something like that to get away from the dirty water. You can catch fish in dirty water. That's what we're
talking about. Yeah.
But it goes back to the confidence is what makes you successful. And if you're not going to give that dirty water the shot it deserves, because it probably would be a little bit slower. If you're not going to give the shot it deserves, there's no reason to go start it in the first place. So if you just want to go find that green water or clear water, it's tough right now this time of year because those fronts will suck a south wind as they're coming and then turn right out of the north right away. But I mean, one of the proofs you can catch fish in dirty water is, everybody gets excited about fishing the tide dump, but that water is just turned over muck and you can catch fish in it. It's a little bit easier because they're all congregated in one spot, but they had no problem seeing that lure, filling that lure, finding that lure. So
the other thing, Dean, I'm sorry, but the other thing, Dean, is where's this cold front? I've seen people posting on our website, and Scott alluded to it a little bit about this cold front coming and all this other stuff. I mean, I see 64 on Saturday. I mean,
I think there's there's a second wave coming. Like this was just the first pulse, and there is another line coming. And I mean, we'll see if it gets cool, cold, whatever you want to call it. But then we're a long way from cold front. But on the dirty water, in Redfish Bay here around Aransas Pass, it gets streaked. There'll be streaks of dirty water, and then there'll be patches of clean water that are protected. If you're fishing flats that are like near Aransas Bay, around the big bay, like if you go to Estes Flats where the big cut is and Aransas Bay gets churned and where that tide is bringing in, you'll get huge patches of dirty water, but there'll still be a lot of pockets of green water. And then on the other side of the bridge, Ransom and Dagger Flats that are close to Corpus Christi Bay, if the wind blows from that direction, it'll stir up the bay, and then the tide will bring dirty water onto those flats. So it's not as dramatic as the upper coast, but we do get some dirty water. And I mean, I run from the dirty water. I'm always can find a pocket of clean green stuff, no matter how bad it is. So, I mean, we don't even spend that much time, grinding it out through the dirty water. So,
there's no reason.
We always, and I'm sure they can be caught there just like everywhere else. It's just, on the upper coast, it gets 100% dirty, front to back, side to side. There's not a lot of options. I mean, we get churned. It gets churned pretty good, but it gets streaked across the flats, and there'll be some green mixed in with the dirty water. But this one, I mean, this little event that we had, it's kind of over now. I mean, the wind has calmed down. Looking at the forecast the next couple of days, it's beautiful. I mean, we got less than 10, 12 for the next 4 or 5 days. So, I mean, a very short-lived windy period.
Yeah, and then the weather as well. And to your point earlier about a second wave coming, I am looking at the 10-day forecast, and like next Thursday, it's supposed to get down to 56. So that maybe is going to be when we actually get some activity in terms of like the weather. All right, so I want to go to this one first. We're skipping forward a little bit as we're wont to do because Caleb was showing us. And
also, just for the record, it did not rain in Aransas Pass.
It didn't rain?
It didn't. It some wet stuff fell out of the sky. It didn't water the grass. It didn't wet the driveway. So, I mean, just to follow up from last week where we left off, I didn't want to leave that one so open-ended. Scott, what'd you get at your house? What'd you get in sea drift?
Probably 3/4 an inch.
Bam.
Something like that.
Well, you were right on the fringes.
Really, really hard for about an hour. And the
south of that.
I just looked at the temperature drop. It went from just a little above 80 to 62 inside of an hour.
Okay.
That was a pretty good drop.
So Caleb, you were showing us a video. Again, we're being transparent here. You were showing us a video before we came on air.
And I figured out how to show it if you want to show it.
I would love for you to show it.
All right. You might have to blow my screen up, make me the bigger one. I don't know how you do that.
I will try it right now. But let's how's that? Is that better?
I don't know, I can't see anything. I'm on the video screen, sir.
Is that better, Scott?
I don't see it.
I don't see nothing.
All right, hold on. Anyway, there it is. All right, add to stage. Here we go. All right. So,
hey, there it is.
All right, here we go. So here's the controversy. This is from the Power Pole Go Live tournament, which is it's a single man tournament. It's the championship. And so the way the tournament works, there's no weigh in. You have a camera guy on your boat, which like if I was fishing, I could ask Scott or Dean to come be my cameraman. You catch a fish, you go live, you tag Power Pole, you bring your fish in, you weigh it, it goes on the scoreboard. This fellow won third, and he's in a bit of an issue because this fish forgets to move ever. Let me see.
And we're watching the video. For those who are on audio, you can go to the YouTube channel and find it. But he's reeling in this fish. It looks like it's floating. He nets it, and then when he puts it
on the ground to make it look like it jiggles.
Yeah.
Watch just put him in the bag.
Puts it in the bag to weigh it.
This fish
still hasn't moved.
He's never moved.
Mm-hmm.
But the release is the absolute jewel of everything, and the fact that he never lets his scales. He's like so anxious to get this fish off of this camera that he never even lets his scale lock in. Watch it. He at some point just goes, "It's 812," and chunks the fish.
Yeah. And so that's what you're. If again for the ones who are listening on audio on the podcast,
here's the release. Here's the release. This is beautiful.
It's just laying there.
Here's the release,
and it's floating,
and it floats under the boat,
and it's floating.
Dude, that's a dead fish.
That is a dead fish.
He is getting murdered. And then we won't do it in the other video. The fish we weighed in before this, he puts it in that just like y'all saw. It's got the little net bag, and he puts it in there. He puts his scales on it. He picks it up, and the fish is suspended in the air, and the scales say 610. And then the hand that's not holding the scale disappears, and all of a sudden the scale says 713.
Oh Lord!
And then we chunked that one out of the boat too. This guy is having a rough day on the socials, and he hasn't taken the polys yet for this tournament. And I'd imagine they're going to play him and the cameraman at this point. I would just leave. I would move. I would go to South America and become a Abu Dhabi Indian.
This is awesome. And the thing is, Scott, like we've gone through this. You've been warned with those walleye guys. I mean, you're going to get caught. And that fish is dead, man.
You know, so I'm a devil's advocate. And when I see people on the interwebs just trashing somebody, I always try to be the voice of reason, because I've had fish that because the comment it was a like a paragraph.
They love the voice of reason.
No. They wrote like a paragraph about it, because I've had all kinds of crap happen in tournaments. They wrote a paragraph about it. I didn't see the video, and so I read the paragraph like that fish never moved. And I thought to myself, well, I've caught fish that didn't move. This is, and so I went in the comments to be like, hey, doesn't necessarily mean it's dead. And I saw the video, I was like, that fish is dead. That fish is dead. He's been dead.
Even the tail, the tail is pointed. It's not flared out. I mean, that's
all right. His little arm fins are like,
yeah.
On that thing, don't they have to measure them?
No. It just can't be over 9 or 10 pounds. 9 pounds or 10 pounds. Instead of doing length, they do a weight that makes it over.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Which
is, Caleb, do you know this guy? Is he a regular tournament fisherman? Is he on the...
No, he's just some random dude from Louisiana. Nobody seems to know him. No,
they know him now.
Here's the thing. I've said it once. I've said it a million times. If you try to cheat in redfish tournaments with seasoned people with their eyes on you, you are going to get outed instantly. You're not getting away with crap. You're not going to make your fish heavier than it is. Whenever he released the fish that I said he pulled in the bag or whatever he did, when he holds it in his hands to release it, I mean, Scott and Dean do the same. That's a 6-pound fish. We know how heavy those fish are when you pick them up to put them on the scale. Like you're not going to get it past us. We've seen it and done it too many times. But this poor dude.
And for those, just real quick, Scott, before you jump in, Scott, for those who are only listening on the podcast, because we have people all over the country that don't watch on YouTube live when we're recording, I'm going to clip that one part and I'll put that on the Bite Me YouTube channel, so you don't have to watch the whole podcast. We'll just this segment here, but that's ridiculous, man.
And I'll send you the one where the fish gets magically heavier too. This dude's he's in for it. It's gonna be a bad one.
Scott?
Oh man, what are the odds of snagging a dead fish in the marsh?
Well, and so how much prize money was on the line in that tournament?
It pays pretty good. I don't know how much, but it pays pretty stinking good. I mean, the big names, Kevin Aiken won it. I mean, the big names are all there. And this dude shows up in his aluminum boat and competes with all them, which I'm not saying you can't. You can, but the odds aren't really very good in your favor. But here's my thing is, so the video starts and he's reeling it in. He's up on his tower and he's reeling it in. Then he brings I know that ain't the first take. How many times they throw it out there and be like, no, that didn't look worth a shit. Try it again. And then that particular one, they were like, that'll work. That'll get them.
No one will know.
Yeah.
How bad were the other ones?
Yeah.
Jesus.
But you're right. When after you said it off air, I looked at it and made note on this one. He put that fish on the deck and it kind of bounced like it was flapping. No, it was a dead fish bouncing.
He threw it out of the net. He choke slammed, boom, and like. We'll come back to this. I'm gonna text somebody and ask them how much the power pole paid. My thing is, if you had 2 or 3 days to fish for the thing and still couldn't win it, you suck.
Yeah, and that ties
directly. If you hook a dead fish and you try to fool everybody, you suck.
And then it still goes back to I get it. Money makes people do stupid things. It happens every day. I get it.
That pointed tail thing is the giveaway, though, man.
Yes.
When fish are fresh out of the water, that tail is flared wide open, and you throw them in the cooler when they come out. Whenever they're dead, that shit is pointed, man.
The second part of what I was going to say, though, is yes, I get it, but the risk reward, man, the risk reward first of all, you'll never fish in a tournament again. The humiliation, and as Scott told one of our listeners here, Scott, I don't know about Texas, but in some states that might be a felony.
It's 100% going to be a felony. It's 100%
a felony. I don't know about Louisiana.
Yeah,
I think it's gonna. I think yeah, because third place in that thing probably pays pretty good. But yeah, no, it's a big money tournament. I think 11 grand.
11 grand.
Yeah, 11 grand. So it's not as much as I thought it would be, because I think Power Pole, they sponsored one of our tournaments and donated 100 grand to it. Mm-hmm. Either way, it's
11 grand. That ain't worth the ass whooping.
And getting sent up the river potentially, or at least probation.
Oh yeah. Shit, a lawyer costs more than that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they give away a boat too, though. I think you win a boat if you win it. So the prize pool is up there enough to get him in some trouble.
Yeah, he'll be in trouble. Which I'm so glad you brought that to us, Caleb, because there was a topic that we had, question that I got,
and frankly, he said felony. He's in Louisiana.
Felony? Yep. It is a felony in Louisiana. Okay. Well, good luck, fella. And by the way, we don't know his name. We're not going to say his name, but his name is going to get out there. It's already.
I can say it.
Everybody else knows it, except for the three of us.
It's somebody we've never heard of. Don't tempt me at the good time, though. But screw this dude. His name is Derek Buziga.
Well, there you go. There you go.
You'd like me to spell it out so you can go to his Facebook page. I mean, we've already talked about Hamster Man. What we got to lose now?
Hamster man.
Can I get his address? I want to send him a Christmas card.
I'm reading it right now. When the most valuable prize offered in a contest amounts to a value of $100 or more, the offender shall be fined not more than $3,000, imprisoned with or without hard labor for not more than 1 year, or both.
Ooh, dude's going to Angola.
What are you in for?
Shawshank Redemption. Shawshank Redemption 2.
That's what you're going to have to say. Like, what are you in for? I caught a dead fish.
Yeah.
I got no street cred.
No.
I don't know what gang he's going to join. What prison gang is he going to join?
He's going to be in the walking backwards in the shower club is what he's going to be in.
Terry Obama said, "Don't eat your cornbread."
You're going to eat your cornbread. So, Scott, the question on that I got that ties directly with that is apparently, and I just got the story secondhand, but apparently there were some guys fishing, and they were fishing near another boat that was keeping undersized flounder. And the way they were doing it, I mean, that's the thing. Like, you go to all these extremes to cheat or to break the law. So they were catching these undersized flounder, putting them in a net that had weights on the bottom, some sort of weight on the bottom of it. So they tied it off the bow in case the popo came. They could just untie it and it would sink, right? And so apparently these dudes saw them doing this multiple times. And the question I got was, why aren't there more, game wardens actually patrolling on the water? That's how he told me the story. And I said, well, I mean, they are on the water. It's just, there's not a lot of them, and you don't see, they don't see everything. But if my question for you, Scott, and because this is what he asked me as well, should the penalties be more severe? Should the penalties be more severe, like for like blatantly premeditated catching fish, putting it to the point of putting them on the bow with weighted net in case somebody comes along? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, that's up to the judge, and judges are pretty good about that, from what I gather. The ones on the coastal counties and that deal with this, if it's blatantly obvious that you were, trying to break the law and being a poacher, basically, then they're going to hit you a little harder, and then you got the restitution, and they can charge you restitution for each and every fish. Every game bird, every game animal has a price tag on it. And so they can get hit pretty hard. And then the guy who's, out there fishing, and he's half an inch under on and he gets a ticket for that. The judge is going to look at that and give you a slap on the wrist and say, that was doing 25 and a 20. Okay. You're not, doing 100.
Yeah.
So, it's up to the judge on that. I've seen a few crazy ones out there myself.
I was just going to ask you all, but you started, Scott. What's the worst blatant, this guy needs to be fined big time thing you've seen on the water?
I was fishing the jetties in Galveston, fishing the North Jetty, and this boat near me, it was an old style with the windshield and had the little cuddy cabin thing, and just old boat, 3 guys in it. And they were catching bull reds one after another in big drum, oversized drum. And they were taking them, and you'd see them pull their life jackets out of the little cubby hole and shove that fish up inside the cubby hole, and then put the life jackets back in front of it. And then they do it again and again and again. I don't remember how many. They had 8, 10 bull reds in there. And this was during the time when you couldn't keep a bull red, period. There wasn't a tag even. And these were obvious bulls. I mean, they were 35 to 40-inch fish, and there was no cell phones, no nothing. You couldn't just call in this 1-800 number. I run back in, and I'm putting my boat back on the trailer at the Galveston Yacht Basin, and I look up, and there's my buddy from high school who is a game warden, and old Kevin is standing there. He sees me. Hey, what's going on? I'm talking to him. I said, man, there's some dudes out there at the jetties just hammering bull reds and stuffing them in the bow of their boat and hiding them with life jackets. And he goes, man, what kind of boat was it? And I said, I was old Falcon, and kind of describing it and describing the guys. And I said, oh, there they are. That's them. This is a whole lot easier now because that's what they look like.
Yeah.
And Kevin goes, oh, thank you very much. He sat over and off the side and he just hanging out and let them get their boat on the trailer, and they pulled their boat up out of the water, and they started to just keep driving instead of pulling up and taking their stuff out and doing all that. They tried to just keep driving, and Kevin pulled out in front of them and said, hey boys, y'all catch anything today? Oh, no, sir. No, sir. Here's our licenses. They started giving the licenses, and then he climbed up in the boat and started pulling the life jackets and started pulling one fish after another fish after another fish. He had them all lined up on his tailgate. And it was pretty hefty fines on that one, I would imagine.
Bean?
Yeah, we got we have the same issues around here, and the one that around here is the winter Texans who come down in the winter, and they actually will bring they got little freezers rigged up on generators. Their goal is to just stuff them full to the top with as many fish as they can catch and then pack them back home. And so there's a place over here on the edge of the road called the Sailboat Channel. It's easy access. And in the winter, it's great fishing. It's these deep cuts that just adjacent to all the flats. In the wintertime, they get loaded with black drum, redfish, and it's pretty popular. So, I mean, it can get a little congested in there. But we were actually kayak fishing that day. And so as we're sitting over there across the canal fishing, I'm watching this truck sitting on the side of the road. And these guys were catching rat reds, 15 and 16 inches. Every single one of them was going in the cooler. And back then, I had the personal phone number to our local game warden who lived here in Aransas Pass, and actually got him on the phone, sat there long enough. We just continued fishing. And those dudes, I forget, they were, man, I don't want to, Wisconsin or Michigan. It was one of the Midwest states up there. And game warden rolled up on them, and man, they were just loaded down with 15, 16-inch redfish. But I mean, they weren't even trying to conceal it. They were reeling them in, tossing them in the cooler. And in the wintertime, you can sit there and catch one on every single cast. I mean, they pile into those canals. And it was pretty blatant. And luckily they got busted. But the thing with the game wardens is there's a lot of water out there, man. There's a lot of area. And they rely on people, man. So if you see something, there's the what's the game, the one
I got it right here. 1-800-792-GAME.
792-GAME. Yeah. So, I mean, they rely on people calling and reporting infractions, and, don't be shy, call them up. And if they're close by, they make it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it don't, but they're out there.
You ever been shocked by a telephone?
Shocked by a telephone? Back in the day, the old rotaries used to give you a little shock.
It was a rotary. Dean, Dean and Scott know about the telephone.
Oh yeah.
Telephone was a critter you'd drag on the bottom of a river, and you'd turn this crank, and it'd build up a big ass electrical charge, and any fish that didn't have scales would just float to the top. But it shocked the hell out of you about every fifth turn, I've been told.
Yeah.
Turns out that's frowned upon. I've been told. Catfish the size of a damn Volkswagen down there, I'm telling you.
That's Caleb, by the way. That's Caleb.
Yeah. I did a podcast with a game warden. He brought me a telephone. He's like, you know what this is? Like, yes, sir, I do. There's a guy in Matagorda, early 2000s, I guess. And he had him a rig where he could go get into a bunch of trout. And I've heard a lot of stories of him filling up 100-quart coolers with trout to the top and bringing them all back in the early hours of the morning and cleaning them stuff. And I always thought that was pretty crappy. And he didn't ever get caught doing that. Got caught doing other stuff, not that. But I find that to be pretty blatant, and telephone will shock you.
Yeah. How do you know that again?
My grandfather told me about it.
But I mean, look, okay, so 1-800, it might as well be a public service here. 792-GAME, that's 792-4263. It just, all this to me just continues to just boggle the mind. Like, especially in today's era, everybody's got a phone. First of all, like, even if you don't want to get caught, everybody's got a phone. Everybody's can call, take pictures, take videos. It's just the brazen nature that people have when it comes to fish. And here we are talking about just take a picture, man. And if you really want to eat, Scott, how many times have you said this? If you think go fishing for groceries, a quarter of that money, and you can fill up your refrigerator with fish if you go to the grocery store.
Yeah, fishing is not about subsistence anymore. I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, there are some. There's some guys that are going to go down there and have some dead shrimp, go sit down there and catch some croakers and sheep's head and whatever, and that's what they're gonna. That's what they're feeding their family with tonight. But all these trout folks and everything saying, "Oh yeah, the limit is only 3, and I got to keep more than 3 to justify going fishing." You're not justifying anything with the cost of fishing and the gas and the tackle and everything that we use. It's for fun, folks. Yes, it's nice to have a good meal out of it every once in a while. That's fine. Got no problem with it. Do it myself.
I worked on a big ranch with a bunch of foreign exchange students that work there, and those guys they would take a like a Dr. Pepper can, and they would tie mono to the tab on it, and then they would wrap it around the can and go down to the river and sling the bait around their hand and sling it out there and come off the can. And they catch a fish and they had pull the fish and eat it. That's the last dude I ever saw that did it to eat.
Yeah. Didn't cost him as much either. Just a fraction.
Well, I mean, that's Scott's point. Those dudes, they had a little foreign exchange student at Camp House, and they would go catch fish, and that's what they ate to get by. That's the last person I saw do that.
We got a question asking me to post the number here, and I did. And Caleb said, "You're a rat." You're missing the point here, Caleb.
Stitches, John.
Well, that the 1-800 number is great and all, and have it handy. But if you're like myself, living right here, and get to know your game wardens, they're good folk. They're cool people, and get to know them, and they'll give you your cell phone number. And I've got the cell phone, and I can pull up 3 different game wardens right here, right now, and it helps out on my property at times too. I mean, if I got somebody cruising down my dirt road looking like they might be shooting something, I can call up one of my game wardens, and they'll slide over here if they're available.
Well, even more than that.
That's just because you're in the brotherhood.
You got that secret wave.
Yeah, he's got that red phone sitting on his desk. You just pick it up, man. They come running.
Tommy Johnson was the game warden in Matagorda forever, and I had his number. So if I saw something I didn't like, I could call him. But even better than that is get clarification on things. There's some stuff that's kind of, it's a shades of gray. And I call the game warden, and he's like, "Well, it's not that bad. And frankly, I wouldn't care if you did it, or can't do that or can do that." I used to, me and the woman that ran the locks going to West Bay, me and her, we didn't get along. Because there was a little light hung off those locks, and it would look like a toilet bowl of redfish, probably about 4 hours after dark until daylight. And if you casted 10 lures in there, you're catching 10 redfish, and so forth and so on. And me and my buddy, we had this when I was in college, and we had this little 18-foot aluminum boat. And man, we'd come around out of the Colorado River, and we'd come around that corner real quiet, and we'd get up there and we'd cast under that light, and "Oh yeah, we got one. That's a good son of a bitch cow." And she had come running out. "You can't fish here. You can't fish here." You're like, "Oh man, we're sorry, ma'am. We're sorry. We didn't know." And we'd leave. And then an hour later, we'd come around that corner real quiet again. And we'd do that all night long. And she'd tell us, "Well, I'm gonna call the game wardens on you," but I'd already called the game warden. And if you are not anchored, you can fish there. You can fish around locks if you aren't anchored. And shit, we weren't there more than 5 minutes. I thought we were good. Well, that lady hated us.
So it's not right now, Dean, as you were talking about. The wind's kind of died down, but I guess during the wind, this was a listener from Galveston area, and said, how do you guys manage fishing in high wind? And he said different scenarios. And I said, you know what, that's a good question. I'm gonna ask the fellas. He said, like, sometimes obviously people wade fishing, and maybe Caleb can address that, because he was asking about which side of the bay, windward or leeward or whatever. We never really figured out which one is which.
We still can't answer that question.
We still can't answer that.
Scott's the only one who understands it.
But Dean, he was asking about drifting. Other than, like, you put out a bunch of socks, I mean, and it's windy, the water tends to be maybe a little streaky. He wants to know, how do you approach fishing like high wind days when you want
Okay, so there's stages of that. You got so much wind, 1 drift sock. Then you get the next level, you got 2 drift socks. Next level, 3. And then, of course, at ludicrous wind, you put out 4, and then it doesn't really slow the boat down. It just makes you feel better about it. But then,
wait. But what do you do if you've got a sail between your legs?
Sit on an ice pack. You
have to open the cooler to sit in it.
So, well, there was a couple of days whenever. And not to distract too much from the story.
That's all right. That's all right.
So I have not been allowed. So when you get hernia surgery, you can't pick up anything for 3 weeks. So Carrie has been loading all of my ice.
Oh, wow.
She's been toting all my ice to the boat. She's been toting gas cans to the boat. And then one of those days, the ice pack was sitting up there on the polling platform. And man, I just sat on that thing and I was like, that's nice, man. I was like, hey, we were at the store. Hey, man, we pulled up at the store. I mean, we're easily distracted, but this is a good one. We were at the corner store, man, where I load up all my ice, and we went over there on the golf cart. And then this big old redneck boy, he pulls up in his F-350, and he parks next to me. And Carrie, I'm standing there like a dumbass watching my woman like chunk ice, loading it up. And this redneck boy looks at me like he's going to slap my face. We're letting my woman pick up all of that ice and load it. And I was like, sorry, bro.
No. I would have owned it. I'd have said, yeah, I got her trained. Yeah, I got it trained. That's how good it is. That's how good it is right there.
I should have went faster, woman.
You need that clip from Indiana Jones when he got the cup and the knight says, "You have chosen poorly."
Yeah.
Dude, right now.
Yeah, that boy, he wanted to knock me down for doing that. But so you got 4 drift bags out, but then in extreme conditions, and you just have to fish. After that point, you put the power pole down, you park it. And you control your drift with the pole. Put the pole down, you cast, you cover up that area, pick up the pole, drift forward, park it again. So it's really the only way to still be thorough and be effective and cover up that area without just screaming through it too fast. I mean, that's how I do it on the flats here. When 4-bag drag is still flying too fast, you just put the pole down, stop the whole situation, and then you pray for a fish to swim by.
And I'm going to ask Caleb a derivative of this when we talk about wading, but first for you, Dean, the fish are not really affected, or do they tend to be affected to one side or the other when you're drifting across?
We mean wind or no wind, or the
wind on a windy day?
The fish love wind. The wind creates current. The wind stirs up the food chain. I mean, the wind is great for fishing. It's great for what's happening under the water. It's difficult for what's happening above the water, which is us. I mean, yeah. So we had, over the last 10 days, I've been dealing with this. We've had a really slack tide and no wind. Kiss of death, man. You can watch fish swim around. You can watch them follow lures. They can see everything. They're suspicious. They're just not going to hit. That we went from 0 wind 2 days in a row, couldn't buy a fish. 3rd day, wind was screaming. I mean, it was just howling. And then the food chain responds well. Those fish are still there, the ones that you were seeing. The wind cranks, creates current, bam, it turns. I mean, and we catch fish all day long in the wind, but it makes attacking those areas a little more challenging.
Yeah, and Scott, before we get to Caleb, I put Franklin's comment up there because that was another part of his question. Like, does it matter where you're looking, or just, hey, let's pick a good spot that looks fishy and drift across the bay? Because he's talking about wind blown points and such.
On the windy days, I always went in the marsh. I fished the upper coast. I'd get way back in the marsh and fish around the islands, around the drains, around the points, anything that the wind was pushing into. Imagine that being the current, and then where it would go around the end of an island or the end of a point, the fish would stack up there. You can sit there and watch them, and they'll stack up. That's what Caleb and I did over in Louisiana. We've talked about that a couple of times. It was a wind-blown shoreline that was at an angle to the wind. Wind was blowing down that shoreline, and then when it hit this corner, there was a deep drop right there, and those fish absolutely stacked up on it. And imagine what the wind is doing to the bait, and imagine the bait being blown by that wind. When it gets that high, it does affect the bait fish, and it creates the current, and it pushes them around corners. And the big fish sit around that corner out of the current, waiting for the current to bring them food. It's like a conveyor belt for them. The other is fishing around, deep drop-off drains, going up bayous, I had some bayous around Galveston that were tree-lined. Still had salt water, but there was oak trees all along there. I'd disappear up on some of those little bitty bayous, getting some far, far backwaters and try to duck some of the wind. Open flats is different. That's what Dean fishes. But where I was in upper end of the bays, it was all about the marsh on windy days. Around here, it's kind of both. I've got some backwaters that I can do that in. I don't have a lot of backwaters that have scattered islands in them like I did in Galveston. So I have to hit more points and long shorelines where it goes down and pushes around a point and kind of work those areas.
All right, Caleb, you're the pressure's on, because I always think of you and Patrick Gardner, who we need to have on the show again here real quick, by the way, at some point, as my wade fishing, we've all wade fished, but my current wade fishing experts, because you do a lot of it. And it sounded like the listener that sent me this message, Caleb, he did some drift fishing, and he wanted to hear from Scott and Dean on what they just talked about. Sounded like he was more of a wade fisherman, and he was kind of perplexed. Do you wade more, on the protected shoreline, so you're having a nicer day and, maybe not beat up as much? Or, and I think he heard this on the podcast, if I'm remembering correctly, do you go to the wind blown side and maybe get more action, kind of what Scott was talking about? So dig in on the wade aspect of it.
What was the question again? Oh, man, it depends. It depends on where you're at. If I'm in Port O'Connor or Port Mansfield, I'm on a grass flat just bombing it. Rockport, I'm on a grass flat just bombing it. If I'm up here, Matagorda, a little bit more middle coast type stuff, that's whenever, and it's a loaded question. Most of the time, I'm going to be somewhat in a protected spot. Sometimes, like Frank said, I'm going to be fishing a wind blown point or a gut or something like that. If the wind's bringing in water or pulling out water, it's a figure out your surroundings and what's happening and adjust from there. It's never once has it been like, oh man, it's windy, I'm going to go to the south side. Oh man, it's windy, I'm going to go to the north side. There's so many more pieces to the puzzle, and I think you could be successful in either one of them, really. So, if you don't want to get the hell beat out of you, fish the windward side. If you don't mind it, go to the leeward side.
Get into windward. That's a wayward conversation.
Oh, but yeah, it's what else is involved in the equation, right? That's the big answer. Is it moving water around points? Is it pulling? Is it pushing? All those kind of things. If you want to be a sissy, hide. If you don't.
But just by and large, and Scott, I know you want to weigh in on this, but just by and large, the easier way to fish is to wade when it's really, really windy, just because you can get your feet on the ground, right?
Yeah, you're not going to get pushed around like you are in a boat. Back in my hardcore wade fishing days, that was the first day of the wind, it had been calm, and you catch that first day and a half of high winds, the crazy cranking winds like we got, yesterday. I would fish on wherever I had fish prior to that. If that was on the, typically be on the calmer side, the south shoreline, got a south wind blowing real hard, I'd wade that. 3 or 4 or 5 days in, now all the bait fish have been moved to the other side, and I would fish the real windy coves, wherever the water was getting blown into and stuck in a cove that didn't really have an outlet. And you would have more bait stacked up in there. Water would be dirtier. It's harder to fish. And like Caleb said, you got to figure out how mad at them you are. If you're tournament fishing or you're going to grind it out and you've got that mentality, then 2, 3, 4 days into a big blow, go over to that other side and see how tough you are.
Yeah, see how tough you are. All right, boys. Boy, that flew by. We got to get to what would Scott do, what would Dean do, and what would Caleb do, because the weather, I don't have it up now, but I had it up a second ago. It looks like it's going to be good, maybe a little windy after that toward the weekend, but not too crazy, and then starting to really cool off here in the next 6 to 8 days. But Dean, I'm going to start with you because it seems like your plan is going to be pretty straightforward for the next few days. But what about when it starts cooling off and maybe the fish start to get a little frisky? What would you do this? Let's talk about the next week.
Well, we still got the ludicrous tide. I mean, we got crazy 2 feet above normal high tide right now. As long as the tide stays where it is, I mean, we're a long way from wintertime fishing down here. I mean, we don't get to that till January, February. Even the cold fronts that come down just don't move fish off the flats. And when the tide is up the way it is, I mean, I'm going to be on the shallowest flats I can find, usually closer to shorelines, but the last couple of weeks it hasn't been that way. Even on the high tide, we've been catching the majority of our big fish right out in wide open water. But I mean, it's for right now, it's the same game plan. A lot of top waters, paddle tails that move fast, making just right under the surface, pushing a wake. And yeah, I mean, the low tide is still up on the pier right now. The high tide is over the pier. So, I mean, that makes a lot of the shallowest flats that you usually can't spend a lot of time on very inviting for the next couple weeks. The crowds have been ultralight. One thing that's really changing, of course, in Redfish Bay right now is we have duck hunters. There's a duck season open.
Oh yeah,
the airboats. There's a lot of the places that we normally fish that get loaded with ducks. I will avoid those. I mean, I let the duck hunters have it just to avoid the controversy. And it's certainly not cold enough to wait to go out till noon like you will in the second season. But searching out the shallowest flats, avoiding the real popular duck hunting spots, top waters and paddle tails, moving fast.
How about a little deeper water there, Caleb? You're going to have some drop-offs where you are. You're going to have some deeper flats, a little northeast wind going into the weekend, it looks like. What are you going to be doing?
Well, I was going to be going to Cokergy, Louisiana, where we had an entire lodge rented out with its own dock and its own ramp and a commercial kitchen in my brand new boat that's going to be finished tomorrow.
Yeah.
And somehow the powers to be have figured out how to make a hurricane on November 10th. And it's going to hit Louisiana. So, John, I'm not going to be doing crap.
Yeah. You'll be sitting in your new boat in your driveway.
I might try to figure out how to work my new Lowrance. I don't know. Damn it.
Putting all your
and next week
spots, all your numbers in.
Wind days in Louisiana.
Yeah.
All single digit. A hurricane, John. A hurricane.
We didn't even mention that. I wasn't, and I'm one of those dummies, I guess. I wasn't really taking it that serious, but it is coming, Scott. There is another hurricane coming.
Yeah, it's supposed to die out some, and water temperatures aren't hot enough to keep it percolating real good. So it's supposed to drop back down from a hurricane to a tropical storm, but it's still going to mess things up.
Still be a lot of water.
Still going to be a lot of rain, a lot of wind, a lot of water. So,
hey man, there's a couple of them spaghetti strings pointed over towards Texas too. So, hey, nobody trusting nothing right now.
But
it's going to matter. If I go to Louisiana, it's in Louisiana.
If it goes into Louisiana, then that puts us on that northwest wind side.
That's what the forecast is. Yeah.
Yeah. So the upper coast could see a dump. It could happen. It depends on which direction that wind comes from.
Scott, say smart stuff here. There's 2 fronts about to hit this thing in the face. It's not going to be much more than just a tropical storm by the time it gets here. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're saying. We've got cooler water. It doesn't have the fuel from the hot water out in the middle of the Gulf like it would have a month and a half, 2 months ago. So
Caleb should change his plans and come down here and fish with me, and we could fill up the lakes of South Texas. We need the rain.
Yeah. Plan a tournament down in our neck of the woods. But go ahead, Scott. You were talking about what would you do in the hurricane
for that storm? I've done it before when one came into that end of Louisiana, coming from that direction. Like earlier, we had the one that came across the Gulf, and that just pushed our water up. It didn't help us. But this one's supposed to be coming in more from the east, and so we'll probably catch that northwest wind out of that. And if that happens, get yourself out there and get some, because we haven't had a dump yet this year, and it's getting pretty late. So the shrimp are ready to move on out. Could be really good on the upper coast.
Yeah, I was just going to say, especially on the upper coast, correct?
Yeah.
So being in Galveston.
Around here, I'm looking at just typical 10 to 15 mile an hour southeast throughout most of the week. And then as we get into the weekend, Saturday morning, we got a northwest. It's supposed to be blowing pretty good, 15 to 20. So that might drop some water out. Dean's talking about how high his tide is. Our tide dropped almost 3 feet here today with this little front that blew through. I mean, we went from above 3 feet, water over the docks and everything, down to like half a foot on the low tide. So if that north wind coincides with
hang on.
If the north wind were to happen to coincide with a falling tide, which is
look at this, okay,
it'll drop.
I can damn near see your house from Redfish Bay. The tide right now at Port Aransas jetties is 2.2. The average normal tide is like 0.9, 0.6, 7 in that range. So that is 18 to 20 inches above. Hey, look, I don't care what you got. I got one. I got one too.
We have dueling screens.
Yes.
I got one too. 2.2, and it's just coming off the low tide. It's coming in right now. And just to confirm, yes, that is Port Aransas, Texas.
Yeah, always double checks.
That is
low tide at my jetties today was 0.7.
Damn. All right.
It dropped.
Well, maybe that's the difference between Port O'Connor and Port Aransas.
Low tide at Port A was 1.4.
The wind was blowing straight out the jetties this morning with that front when it blew through, and it was blowing hard, and it dumped. It dumped a lot of water out. I don't know. It's not even back to normal. I mean, it didn't reach the predicted low of 0, but it came pretty damn close. So if we can catch some of that, it's the right time of year. Just keep an eye on your apps and watch the wind. If it's got west, northwest, even straight north on certain parts of the upper coast, it'll start dumping out, and you got a good shot. And it's showing to coincide with Saturday morning. So there's a good possibility we might finally get a low tide, low tide.
Now that's going to encourage a lot of people. And that also speaks to the orientation of Port O'Connor versus like Aransas Pass and stuff. Because, I don't doubt either of you, with the tide's still high and down south and dumping out where you are.
Saturday is a long way away.
Yeah. We'll see what happens.
Well, I'm just trying to. You asked what I'm going to do. Maybe Sunday I might go out and see if there's one last tarpon out there.
Oh, he can't quit tarpon.
Dude, I got 5 mile an hour winds and less than 2 foot seas at 9 seconds on Sunday.
Oh, you got to go out there anyway.
I got to go. I got to go look. I got to go see what's happening. And
so you're talking about for 5 days away? and you're going to trust that. Is this your first day?
I am not trusting it.
Are you new here?
I'm making long-term plans, Dean.
Are you an intern?
Planning ahead.
Hey, that is the optimism. That's the ultimate optimism of a fisherman right there, man. That is
like, zero concept of planning ahead. This is called planning ahead.
I planned a trip to Louisiana for a month and see what happened.
There you go. But did you really? I mean,
no, somebody else did, and they invited me last week.
Yeah, and your boat wasn't even ready. And your boat wasn't even ready. It still might not be ready.
He was planning this damn trip. He didn't say a word to me.
Well, you weren't invited.
I know. That's what I mean. You were planning this trip all this time.
Kayla was like, "Oh crap, I got to get my boat ready." Oh man, fun show.
That's the best part, actually, is me and the owner of JH have known it wasn't going to happen for about the past 4 days, but we've been telling the riggers we need it by Wednesday so we can take it.
Oh, perfect. So you are going to get it. You are going to get it tomorrow.
All it's got left to do is stick some marine mat down on it, and off we go. Well, but my marine mat is incredibly elaborate, and so they say they can get it done. I don't believe them.
Well, we'll find out. I'm sure we'll see some posts. Oh, by the way, just to reiterate for those who might be popping in here late on the podcast, we'd like for you to listen to the whole thing. But that video that Caleb shared with us, I'll clip that. I'll put it out probably tomorrow. We'll post the podcast today and tomorrow, and then probably after that, I'll do that video because it's pretty damn entertaining.
Solid action.
It's not action. That's what's solid about it. It's not a lot of action. But Dean, I hope your boys are back to normal size again. And of course, Caleb, great job with that video, tied in perfect with the podcast. See, you contributed, man. You contributed.
If I read the rundown, it had been planned.
Imagine if he'd have read the rundown. Yeah. And Scott, of course, bringing the heat with his knowledge as always. You guys are awesome. Any parting thoughts other than we need to make sure everybody, when next time they go fishing in Aransas Pass or Port O'Connor or East Matagorda, they book you guys? All right.
Subscribe. Hey, Angler, you got a new platform next week that's going to be great, and then apps are coming 2 weeks behind that or so.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all I got.
You were just slow on the trigger is all. You guys are awesome, man. And thanks for listening. As always, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to join the Facebook group page. And let's go fishing this weekend. I'll be down there, Dean. I'll be going fishing for sure. You guys catch them up. We will talk to you next time.
So, Dean, you've been having any problems with squirrels lately?
I'm gonna post a picture of my nut stack and show y'all.